16. Pierce the facade. Topple the narcissist. The small Hitlers are around us every day. Robert Payne. Pauline initially impressed the clinic's employees with her vision for what the clinic could become, and her "I've got it all together" persona, but many grew to despise her. Even though head nurse Molly never complained about Pauline's treatment of her to other employees, the stories flying across the clinic's grapevine made it clear that Pauline had gunned for the popular, highly respected Molly from day one. When Molly resigned 10 months before her planned retirement date, several employees wept. Pauline hadn't expected this. She'd thought she'd made it clear that Molly's antiquated ways got in the way of progress. The other staff members soon saw the truth behind Pauline's smokescreen, observing that her arrogance didn't stem from confidence, but from a conviction that there is only one way to do things, my way, and that her sense of entitlement hid a lack of accomplishment. Employee after employee gave notice. Without head nurse Molly to buffer them, the experienced nurses left first, heading for better positions in local hospitals and competing medical clinics. Several first tried to talk with Pauline out of loyalty to the clinic, but were told, "Don't let the door hit you in the rear." Those remaining hoped the physicians would notice the continuing exodus and ask questions, not realizing that Pauline had warned them to expect employee fallout as she cleaned things up. Pauline herself conducted exit interviews with departing employees and advised each of them that if they wanted a good reference, she expected them to watch their mouths. Most did. When the clinic's IT manager resigned without notice after suffering through Pauline's blistering public attack on his competence, the managing physician contacted Pauline. "He's from the dark ages in network technology," Pauline assured the physician. "I gave him every chance, but he wasn't willing to grow with us. Here's the resume of his replacement. This is a man I trust and what we need to move forward." "We heard from 2 staff members but couldn't quite believe that you publicly shamed him," said the managing physician with a worried frown. "Of course I didn't," insisted Pauline. "Modern leadership emphasizes being open and transparent. I spoke candidly to him about what we needed to do to move forward, which was something I wanted everyone to hear and learn from. Give me the names of those gossips." "But," stuttered the conflict-averse managing physician, "if you want me to run a successful practice for you, I need to manage bad behavior," Pauline insisted persuasively. "It's workplace cancer." "If you put it that way." "I do," said Pauline. The news that the managing physician had given Pauline the names of the 2 employees who spoke to him swept through the clinic like a wildfire. What Pauline hadn't told the managing physician was that she wanted to replace the IT manager with someone she trusted, to keep her informed of what the other employees said in emails. Like other narcissist bullies, Pauline had an entourage of sycophants and hired them as soon as possible when she moved to a new company. These yes-men and women knew how to stroke Pauline's ego in return for high-paying positions in which little real work was expected of them, if they kept Pauline happy. Soon, these toadies occupied key positions throughout the clinic. Real-world tactics that work. When you're up against narcissist bullies, you can use the chinks in their armor to take them out. Tactic number 1. Find their weak spots and exploit them. First, narcissists crave the limelight. Their hackles go up immediately when others receive praise or attention. This means they gun for popular individuals like Molly, and if they take on the wrong individual, they bite off more trouble than they can chew. Second, narcissists can't take criticism or any comments that challenge their self-esteem. When she initially came aboard, Pauline enjoyed the employees' admiration, while Molly handled employee problems and took the brunt of their subsequent unhappiness. When Pauline became the clinic's sole administrator, she found herself the target of employees with gripes. Third, narcissists manipulate everyone. Sooner or later, either someone with the power to fight back figures out she's been had and retaliates, or those manipulated compare notes and realize what's going on. Narcissists, who expect others to idolize them, become enraged when their cover is threatened. Tactic number 2. Collect information. Build a solid case. These vulnerabilities led to Pauline's undoing. Gretchen, the low-key, deceptively mousy-looking woman who ran the clinic's accounting and billing department, had welcomed Pauline into the clinic. Pauline saw Gretchen as someone she could exploit, and cultivated this relationship. When Molly retired, Pauline took Gretchen out to lunch and told Gretchen she planned to promote her now that the clinic was mine, all mine. Pauline's glee disturbed Gretchen, as had Molly's premature departure and the continuing employee exodus. Unsure about voicing her concerns, Gretchen prompted Pauline to talk about her vision. Like other narcissists, Pauline enjoyed talking about herself. Diligent and inquisitive by nature, Gretchen unobtrusively dug into Pauline's past. She learned Pauline had left 2 prior medical practices on bad terms. Gretchen began patiently collecting information from current and former employees, promising to keep who said what confidential. To each of them she said, "We built this clinic. We're acting as if this reign of terror is our new lot in life. Do we want it to go on this way?" Gretchen prepared a spreadsheet for the physicians that contrasted employee turnover prior to Pauline's rise to power, with the turnover after she assumed sole control. She presented it to the managing physician late one afternoon on a day Pauline had left early. He hurriedly called a meeting of the physicians. Gretchen's spreadsheet shocked the physicians, who hadn't put together the extent of the employee exodus. While each physician had been aware that 1 or 2 nurses and several front desk workers had quit, none of them had realized the total number of nurses, lab technicians, admitting clerks, and other support professionals who'd resigned. Pauline had instead focused the physicians on the superstars she'd brought aboard. Without mentioning names or specifics that would reveal her sources, Gretchen also provided examples of what departing employees privately stated as their reasons for leaving. Gretchen begged the physicians to avoid outing her to Pauline and admitted that she was close to resigning herself. She gave them an internet-garnered description of a narcissist, noting she'd circled phrases she'd personally observed in Pauline, including grandiosity, inability to take criticism, salesmanship, self-absorption, and fury when others saw through their cover. The physicians then met with Pauline and asked her questions. Pauline, unaccustomed to their scrutiny, flew into a rage and accused them of being weak-willed children. After Pauline stalked out, the physicians admitted to each other that they'd been bedazzled by Pauline and had shut their eyes and ears to the damage she'd inflicted on employee morale. They hired a consultant to conduct an independent employee survey and exit interviews with former employees. The consultant's report, along with legal advice, led the physicians to give Pauline a severance package in exchange for leaving. Tactic number 3. Don't be blinded. Be aware of warning signals. When hiring managers ask me how to avoid hiring a narcissist, I suggest detailed reference checks, which reveal bridges burned and ashes scattered. Narcissists leave a trail. When interviewers find themselves dazzled by an applicant, they need to ask themselves if the applicant takes all the credit for a past organization's success or shares it with others. They can ask applicants to describe a situation in which they've demonstrated teamwork. Narcissists can't, and instead talk about their own extraordinary effort. They show disrespect for others and blame others for problems rather than taking responsibility. Your turn. Where are you now? If you have not encountered a narcissist, imagine what it would be like if you had and answer the following questions accordingly. 1. Have you worked with narcissists? 2. How did they show their preoccupation with themselves? 3. How did they demonstrate their arrogance and their devaluation of others? 4. How did they show their sense of entitlement to do whatever they wished? 5. How did they demonstrate their tendency to hold grudges or their sensitivity to slights? 6. How did their behavior affect you? 7. How did their behavior affect others? 8. How did their behavior impact organizational morale and productivity? 9. What did you or others do to cope? What worked? What didn't? 10. Have you seen a narcissist attack another individual who got too much credit or attention? What happened? 11. Have you met someone who double-talked as well as Pauline, looking good on the surface despite rottenness underneath? How did you figure it out? 12. Although Pauline temporarily took her throne with her retinue in place, Gretchen toppled her. What characteristics did Gretchen show that allowed her to succeed? Which of those characteristics do you share? 13. Have you ever worked alongside a narcissist who dazzled others with his or her tinsel? 14. What advice would you give to someone else facing a narcissist? 17. Take down the rhino before it charges. Success is not measured by what you accomplish, but by the opposition you have encountered and the courage with which you have maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. Orison Swett Marden. When Chris, a lean, red-headed woman with slate-gray eyes, took over the Alaska branch office of a Texas-based contracting company, she knew Don would present a major challenge. Not only did Don, a craggy-faced giant, openly share his "women don't belong in the field" opinions with anyone who'd listen, but he also expected star treatment. The senior executive gave Chris her marching orders. "We expect you to corral Don. We don't want to lose him, but we can't afford him acting like an oil field Michael Jordan." On her first day, Chris held a manager's meeting. Don failed to show. Thumbing his nose, she thought. After the meeting, she sent Don a meeting request message. He didn't respond. Chris's temper simmered as she reviewed her options. Wait him out or go to his office. She marched toward the elevator thinking, all right, showdown at the OK Corral. Real-world tactics that work. Authoritative, forceful, mean-spirited, wounded rhinos like Don count on pushing other people's buttons. If their targets react, the domineering rhinos charge and gore. Don had counted on Chris coming to his office, and Chris almost fell into his trap. Tactic number 1. Launch a preemptive strike. Inside the elevator, Chris caught sight of her clenched jaw in the mirrored wall. She pushed the button for the first floor, exited the building, and went to lunch. After lunch, she headed to one of the work sites Don managed. As she drove up in her red 2015 Mini Roadster, 3 guys on a smoke break outside the building looked over as she exited her car. One gave her a long wolf whistle. "Gentlemen?" Chris asked authoritatively. "Is that how you greet the new branch manager?" "Oh, muttered one. "What the hell?" said another. "Indeed," announced Chris. "Call everyone into the lobby right now for a meeting." Within 6 minutes, 20 men had assembled. "My name is Chris Williams, and I wanted to meet you. In the next 4 weeks, I'll visit every Alaskan job site. I want to see firsthand what's happening in the field and give you a chance to put a face to a name. I have 3 initiatives which you'll hear about in the coming months. None of them, however, is as important as safety. We've had 2 lost-time incidents in the last 3 months, and that's too many. Any questions? A murmured no swept through the crowd. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll let you get back to work. As Chris finished, Don roared up in his Jeep and stomped through the lobby doors. The men saw his storm cloud face and headed for the elevator or the stairs. You visited my site? Don snapped through tight lips. Without asking me? Chris rose to her full 5'6" height and calmly said, You missed the managers' meeting and then apparently didn't see my meeting request. I figured you might be on site. Don looked hot enough to light a cigarette. Lady, you don't need to be in the weeds. Devil's in the details, Don. There's a managers' meeting every Monday at 7 a.m. See you next week. Natural dominators, rhinos control others through deliberate undermining, ill temper, and calculated malevolence. Chris recognized Don's first 2 tactics. 1. Disrespect evidenced by not showing up at the managers' meeting. And 2. Pushing her button by not responding to her meeting request. She had no intention of letting Don run rampant. Her preemptive strike worked. She'd rattled him. Tactic number 2. Strategize and act before you're gored. You'll recall Lexi faced a rhino named Jack who ruthlessly sabotaged her department in his battle to become executive director. Although the employees favored Lexi for the ED position, and she had earlier won many small private battles with Jack, the board wanted an ED who could handle Jack and chose an outside candidate. What should you do if you face a rhino? Strategize and act before they charge, while they're still testing you. Once they've decided to take you out, rhinos gallop forward at 30 miles an hour, attacking with vengeance and giving no quarter. You need to take the high ground first, as Chris did on her first day, and each day after that, until Don gave her grudging respect. Your turn. Where are you now? If you have not encountered a rhino, imagine what it would be like if you had and answer the following questions accordingly. 1. Have you ever worked with or around a rhino? What did the rhino do and how did it affect you? 2. How did the rhino's behavior affect others? 3. How did their behavior affect morale and productivity? 4. What did you or others do to cope? What worked? What didn't? 5. What trap did Chris almost fall into? 6. What will you do differently in the future if you face a rhino? 7. What advice would you give to someone facing a rhino? 18. Undoing a character assassin's wounds to your reputation. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. André Gide. Whippet thin and dressed for battle in a tailored red suit, cream silk blouse, and red suede pumps, Heather wore her air of superiority as obviously as her strut proclaimed it. She cared about one thing and one thing only, and that was Heather. She loved power and money. To her, that required establishing her reputation as the #1 real estate agent in her city. Cassandra, long acknowledged as the city's leading authority on real estate matters, was the only obstacle in her way. Heather set out to destroy Cassandra's reputation among buyers, sellers, the media, and others in the real estate community. Like many character assassins, Heather established a relationship with her target, fawning over Cassandra's accomplishments to her face, while plotting to stick a reputation-slashing knife in her back. Heather used LinkedIn to scope out Cassandra's connections and linked to each of them, flattering them with complimentary introductions and inviting them to lunch. Most of them agreed. If they begged off, she delivered banana nut muffins and cappuccinos to their offices, first checking with their receptionists to determine whether they preferred caffeinated or decaffeinated beverages. Once Heather established a relationship with them, she passed along discrediting rumors about Cassandra at the same time as she pretended to admire her. Heather worked her other connections to establish herself in the media spotlight. Her best friend from high school worked as a television reporter and featured her regularly in spots about real estate news. Heather cultivated relationships with other women whose assistance she anticipated needing: a newspaper reporter, a public relations guru, and several leaders in the title and banking industry. These women met monthly and called themselves the Gang of Seven. They dedicated themselves to helping each other realize their ambitions. Heather attended every real estate or title insurance industry luncheon. Smiling, she quietly, yet ruthlessly told agents about nasty remarks Cassandra supposedly made about them. Because these title and real estate agents saw Heather and Cassandra greet each other as friends in public, they swallowed Heather's stories and cold-shouldered Cassandra. Heather's friend, an IT guru, helped her create alternate Hotmail, Facebook, and Yahoo accounts she used to post defaming stories, allegedly from disgruntled buyers and sellers about Cassandra. A real-world tactic that works. Character assassins act without remorse, knocking others down so they can feel taller. Like many targets, Cassandra felt overwhelmed by the negativity swirling throughout her work community. When she attended industry functions and individuals she had considered friends cold-shouldered her, she wondered what she'd done wrong. She cringed when she logged on to social media and saw postings criticizing her. At first, she wanted to retreat. Launch a counterattack. If a character assassin targets you, you can't run or hide. You can't afford to take assassins' jibes personally or signal that they've hurt you. To do so only emboldens them. Instead, you need to mount a counteroffensive. When Cassandra called me, I suggested she take heart from the fact that her connections called to let her know what they'd heard, instead of worrying about how much of the mud adhered to her reputation. More important, I urged her to reevaluate how she handled it when her connections called her about the derogatory rumors. Cassandra began thanking those who reached out to her and asked them where they'd heard the stories, which allowed her to trace many of them back to Heather. Cassandra then hired a forensic computer specialist to trace the post denouncing her on multiple Hotmail, Facebook, and Yahoo accounts. She learned Heather was behind many of them. Cassandra decided to permanently douse the many brush fires Heather had started with a lightning strike. Several allies arranged for her to speak at an annual real estate convention. When Cassandra walked to the podium, she noticed Heather and her cronies at a table immediately in front of the dais, apparently hoping their presence would intimidate her. When Cassandra spoke, she talked about how she'd grown her career during lean years and how she'd honored those she'd learned from. While Cassandra spoke, Heather and her associates whispered to each other. Cassandra looked over their heads and maintained eye contact with the rest of the audience. She then detailed the defamation of her character and professionalism that had occurred over the past months, and announced that she'd traced many of the posts and rumors to one person. When Cassandra then looked straight at Heather, the room fell silent. "This is the greatest test of courage I've ever faced," Cassandra said. "To stand before you and let you know I almost gave up when things got ugly. If I had, you would not have seen me here today. But I am here. I stand before you, and I stand on my record." One by one, members of the audience stood to applaud as Heather slid from her seat and fled the room. Your turn. Where are you now? If you have not encountered a character assassin, imagine what it would be like if you had, and answer the following questions accordingly. 1. Has a character assassin ever targeted you? What did he or she do? 2. How did the behavior affect you? How did it affect others? 3. How did the behavior affect morale and productivity? 4. What did you do to cope? What did others do to cope? What worked? What didn't? 5. What did you learn from that experience? 6. What would you do differently in the future? 7. What advice would you give to someone facing character assassination? 19. The newest character assassin, the cyberbully. The greatest test of courage on Earth is to bear defeat without losing heart. Robert Greene Ingersoll. After Maeve landed the sales manager position, she learned that a well-liked internal candidate had applied for the job but had been passed over. During Maeve's first week, the unlucky candidate and his closest friend resigned and took jobs with a competitor. Then, without warning, Maeve's world exploded. Within a few days, internet postings appeared accusing Maeve of landing the job by sleeping with her new boss, complete with explicit photos showing the back of a woman's head, her hairstyle resembling Maeve's. Other posts appeared, allegedly from Maeve's former co-workers, claiming Maeve's sales track record resulted from her sexual prowess. Maeve felt dehumanized and helpless. She considered responding, but felt any response might fan the flames. Her new boss and co-workers, however, believed that her lack of response indicated either weakness or an implicit acknowledgement of the truth of the accusations. Their initial warm welcome evaporated, and Maeve emotionally shivered in the frosty chill. A high-tech lynch mob had successfully hacked Maeve's reputation. Have cyberbullies gone after you? What causes cyberbullies to attack? What options do you have when they dump on you? Freedom to bully. The mask of anonymity. Pseudonyms and usernames allow cyberbullies to conceal their real identities on the internet. This personal anonymity, coupled with membership in a faceless crowd, can create a situation in which some people sink to the lowest common denominator. In one famous example, trick-or-treaters were invited to take candies left beside cash on a table in the front hall of a home. 80% of those who arrived in groups and wore masks stole the money, in contrast to 8% of the trick-or-treaters who arrived singly and without masks. Absence of social constraints and consequences. Online disinhibition, the loosening or complete abandonment of social inhibitions present in normal face-to-face interactions, can unleash needs and emotions that dwell below the surface. This emotional catharsis allows some internet users to become less guarded, and those with repressed anger to vent it online. The fear of reprisal squashes unbridled personal attacks in face-to-face interactions. On the internet, many character assassins voice inflammatory opinions freely, without worrying they'll lose a job or friend. Cyberbullies create far-reaching, even worldwide drama, generally free from consequences. If they go too far and provoke counterattacks, they can simply press reset and not log in again under that username or in that forum. They exit the scene even as the damage they've caused remains forever and may even go viral. The internet thus empowers character assassins and increases their sway and reach exponentially, leading them to attack without fear those they perceive as vulnerable. False belief that it's not personal. Because internet users can't see each other, they don't always consider those they tweet or comment about as real people. This allows them to dissociate cruel remarks from the hurt their posts cause. A University of Haifa study revealed that those forced to maintain eye contact were half as likely to be hostile as those whose eyes did not meet. In one such instance, Tammy Blakey, the first female Continental Airlines pilot to fly the Airbus A300, experienced this depersonalization. Continental Airline pilots and crew members used an internet-based crew members forum to learn their work schedules, receive flight information, and exchange views. When Blakey logged on, she found multiple posts describing her as a weak pilot who destroyed an engine, crashed a float plane, and caused $250,000 in damage to a plane by flying it in a hailstorm. Need to create a feeding frenzy. Internet trolls sow discord by starting arguments or posting inflammatory comments with the deliberate intent of provoking emotional responses. They feed off others' comments. For them, the Internet's widespread, instantaneous access and their ability to inflict far-reaching damage with just one text, post, or email message proves irresistible. Real-world tactics that work. Cyberbullies, like other character assassins, realize that repeatedly bombarding their target with one-sided information devastates the target and sways other people's opinions. However, you can take action against them. Tactic number 1. Launch a counterattack. When Maeve stepped back and examined her situation, she realized that the two bullies weren't her biggest problem. Instead, because she hadn't responded to the cyberbullying barrage, her co-workers believed the allegations. Maeve decided not to take it lying down. She met with her new boss and asked him to convene a company meeting so she could set the record straight. He agreed. After all, his reputation was also at stake. At the meeting, she asked attendees to imagine that they'd accepted a job for which an internal candidate was considered a shoo-in, and then to imagine that their reputation was trashed by anonymous postings, and that their only recourse was to take the high road or add fuel to the flames. That's what happened to me, and without any evidence that those postings are true, you've voted me off the island. But how can I convince you that I'm telling the truth? All I can say is that those postings are vengeful lies. Maeve's genuine appeal melted the frosty chill, and one by one her new coworkers apologized for letting a cyberbully trash a new employee. Tactic number 2. Trace and collect evidence. If you receive threatening messages on your cell phone via text messaging, save the texts and trace the phone number through a reverse lookup directory or by searching for the phone number on Google, and then report the harassment to the mobile phone provider. If cyberbullies haunt you on social media, print and save the posts as evidence and report the inappropriate messages to internet service providers, which can trace and take action against posters who violate their abuse policy. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all have online mechanisms for reporting abusive content. Twitter banned for life the users who sent graphic photos of a corpse to Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin Williams, after the comedian's tragic death. Most social media services and apps allow you to block individuals. Obtain a cyberstalking injunction. If you suspect a specific individual of cyberbullying you, you can file a civil action against him or her. Your attorney can then use a civil subpoena to obtain the person's IP, Internet Protocol Address, login record. If you need initial evidence to support the subpoena, a computer security specialist can track many cyberbully postings using the IP address. Some coworker cyberbullies foolishly use their employer's technology to go after you. In those cases, your IT manager can help you collect evidence. If you obtain evidence that a bully has repeatedly used electronic communication to cause you substantial emotional distress through defamatory content, you may be able to secure a non-molestation order or cyberstalking injunction. A judge-granted ex parte cyberstalking injunction starts immediately. If you secure a final injunction, it lasts forever. Protect yourself. Call the police. If cyberbullies or their posts threaten your safety, call the police. Cyberbullies who threaten your life step over the line into illegal activity. the police can track down even anonymous cyberbullies. Tactic number 3. Take charge of your reaction. As you learned in Chapter 5, it's essential to act rather than react. Responding to a cyberbully's attack may give the bully the attention he craves and fuel further aggression. Never give cyberbullies what they want. Don't let them know they have your attention. Block them in their messages. If you delete offensive posts impulsively, you destroy evidence you may need later. If you lash out, you may spur the bully to create an infinite multitude of dummy accounts and post increasingly worse content. Involve your employer. If you face coworker bullies, your employer may take your side, particularly if it pays attention to court rulings. When Tammy Blakey sued Continental Airlines, New Jersey's Supreme Court ruled that employers have a duty to take effective measures to stop co-employee harassment when the employer knows or has reason to know the harassment is part of a pattern of harassment in a setting related to the workplace. Attorney Lucinda Luke, an attorney specializing in labor and employment counseling and litigation, urges victims of employee cyberbullying to refer to their company's employee handbook to determine if there are any policies prohibiting this kind of unacceptable behavior, workplace violence, harassment, and/or discrimination. Most employee handbooks address some or all of these issues and direct the employee to report this behavior so the employer can immediately investigate and correct it. If the bullying continues, alert your employer that the actions taken were not successful in stopping the bullying. Sue the bully or your employer. Continental pilot Blakey sued her employer for not taking action to protect her, winning $875,000 from a jury who agreed with her. Tackle the perception battle. A bully's slander succeeds only when others believe it. Defend yourself proactively by ensuring that those you work with recognize your integrity and worth. Sun Tzu's military treatise, The Art of War, advises that a warrior best wins a war by being an individual no one wants to take on. Like other bullies, cyberbullies can dish it out but can't take it. Don't let cyberbullies shame you into isolation. Connect with your friends and coworkers and ask them to participate in a counterattack by blocking online aggressors, reporting hurtful messages to moderators, and creating posts supporting you. Harness the power of technology yourself by creating a YouTube video that refutes the story being spread. Close the door. You can prevent the bully's attacks from reaching you by canceling all social media and personal email accounts. At work, your company's IT provider can show you how to permanently filter out unwanted messages, and you can open new accounts blocking the bully's emails. The employer's duty. As Blakey's employer, Continental Airlines, learned, employers that allow employees to be cyberbullied have potential liability if the cyberbullying starts in the workplace. It often does. According to a recent survey, 48% of businesses permit all employees to access social networking sites at work for non-business use. The most common areas of employer liability: tweets, Facebook, or blog posts one employee makes about another that involve or escalate to harassment and originate in the workplace or spread into the workplace. Employees who cyberbully on work time or use employer-provided computers or other technological resources when bullying. Employees who cyberbully on employer-sponsored social media, such as the employer's Twitter, LinkedIn, blog, or Facebook page. Devastated by attacks from a cyberbully? Take heart. Maeve talked to her coworkers. Tammy took legal action. Both prevailed. Your turn. Where are you now? If you have not encountered a cyberbully, imagine what it would be like if you had and answer the following questions accordingly. 1. How would a cyberbully's behavior affect you? 2. What could you do to cope? 3. It's more difficult for a cyberbully to destroy your workplace reputation if you've created a strong one. In what ways can you demonstrate your integrity and value in your workplace to handicap a cyberbully's ability to slander you? 4. What privacy protections do you have in place for your social media accounts? Each online vendor has guidelines for creating privacy settings. Act now to set up privacy protections on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media accounts to ward off potential assassins. 5. It's always better to respond strategically than to react. Prior planning makes this easier. Decide the first steps you'll take if attacked by a cyberbully. Will you print the offensive posts immediately? Make this decision now before you're attacked and while your head is cool. 6. If you're a manager or a human resources professional, what actions will you take or recommend to protect your organization from liability and your employees from cyberbullying? This is a good time to put in place an anti-bullying policy, such as the draft one offered in Chapter 26. 7. What advice would you give to someone facing a cyberbully? 20. How to survive the bully boss. At the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Theodore Roosevelt. When Nancy arrived at her new job prior to 8 a.m., she poked her head into the accounting manager's office. "Hi, I'm reporting for duty," Nancy said brightly. "Whoops," responded Yvonne. "We don't pay overtime." "I wouldn't charge overtime. I thought I'd just get to my desk and get a head start. I promise I won't sign in." "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but if I let you upstairs," said Yvonne, biting off her words, "it's on my head." "Okay," said Nancy. "I'll wait." At 2 minutes before 8, she returned. Yvonne looked up and said, "I'll take you up. You're required to be at your workstation by 8 a.m. every day. However, you're not allowed to sign in until 8 o'clock. Also, lateness is not allowed, not even a minute." "Okay," said Nancy as they headed upstairs. "Do you know when my boss gets in and if there's an orientation?" Strain clearly showing on her face, Yvonne replied, "Our general manager prefers to orient you himself. He'll be in when he's in." Nancy looked shocked. "I'm sorry," said Yvonne. "It's just that Steve has certain rules and we don't question him." "No problem. I'm sorry if I overstepped." After Yvonne left, Nancy turned her computer on and was cleaning her desk drawers when she heard heavy footsteps. A man stuck his head through her doorway and in a deep, raspy voice snapped, "I'll see you now." "Yes, sir," Nancy said, hustling after Steve into his office. There were no chairs in front of Steve's desk, so she stood while he sat down, thudding into a giant black leather chair. "Pay attention and you'll do well," declared Steve without any welcoming preamble. "I expect 8 hours work for 8 hours pay. Phone numbers are to be repeated twice for accuracy. I expect total discretion. Plus, I don't like idiot questions." "Yes, sir," Nancy shivered. "I'm done," bellowed Steve with obvious irritation. Nancy fled back to her desk. The bully boss turns a job into a nightmare. Bully bosses chip away at their employees' self-confidence and potential with belittling comments. They demand instant and complete obedience. If you challenge the bully boss's opinions or ask too many questions, the "I rule" boss reacts angrily, forcing you to back down and teaching you to keep your mouth shut. Bully bosses dominate, exploit, and devalue their staff. Their idea of give and take is they take, you give. They ferret out your vulnerabilities and use them as ammunition. Even if you're used to standing up for yourself, you may find yourself outgunned and defeated. Bully bosses rarely see themselves as bullies. Instead, they see employees and others as the problem, often saying things like, "You've got to kick people to get them going," Or, "I'm yelling because they don't hear me unless I shout." Bully managers live in a feedback vacuum because peers don't call them on their behavior, and subordinates don't voice concerns, fearing they'll be fired. Real-world tactics that work. Nancy recognized the situation for what it was. She'd been married to a bully who died of a heart attack at 56, but not before he'd flattened her self-esteem. She gritted her teeth and reminded herself that it took her 3 months to land this job. She returned to her computer and plowed into the piles of work on her desk. Twice, Nancy knocked softly on Steve's door. "What do you want?" he asked. "I have completed letters for your signature." "Well, bring them in." As Nancy handed them to him, she saw the plaque, "It is my way or the highway, and the highway is right out front." She suppressed a smile. She couldn't have asked for a more in-your-face bully. After her husband died, she'd sought out a grief counselor who told her she needed to repair her self-esteem as well as grieve. Nancy realized quickly what she might gain from a short stint working for Steve. Tactic number 1. Help them attain their goals. Bullies appreciate those who enhance their reputation and help them realize their ambitions. By supporting your boss, you decrease the likelihood you'll be the victim of choice. Tactic number 2. Avoid confronting a bully boss. During Nancy's final counseling session, she'd told the counselor, "I'm afraid to ever date again. What if I pick another bully?" "You now have a bully radar," the counselor assured her. "If you date someone who acts like a bully, you'll dump him. If you end up working with bullies, consider it practice in how to stand up for them." "You mean fight them?" "You can stand up to bullies without a fight. The trick is to not let them destroy your sense of well-being or force you to retreat." As Steve blew by her desk on his way out to lunch, Nancy thought, "This guy may be my final exam in handling bullies without letting them trash my self-worth." Nancy learned Steve's triggers and took great satisfaction in doing a better job than he expected. She kept her head down and worked hard. She sensed that Steve was trying to bury her in work so he could blow up when she cracked. Don't challenge bully bosses by expressing your opinions or asking questions. Instead, if you can tolerate their arrogance, let them know what you admire about them and quietly go about doing what you think is right. Learn what triggers their anger so you can avoid setting them off. Tactic number 3. Don't expect their approval or loyalty. Even if they temporarily treat you well, bullies' positive regard can evaporate in a nanosecond. Then they'll turn on you no matter how much you've done. Bullies are guided by their own risk-reward radar. They pick on the weakest members of their team first. However, even if you don't fall into that category, you can't afford to threaten them. Instead, strengthen yourself, inwardly and outwardly, by developing an ally base. Tactic number 4. Use the bully boss's interest in their favorite person, themselves. Once a day, Nancy grabbed coffee from the break room and ate her sandwich at her desk. On her second week, she walked in on 2 coworkers she'd not met who were betting on how long she'd last. "Hi. Can I get a cut if I stay?" The 2 jumped. "So, what odds are you giving me?" 10 to 1 you won't last out the month." "Has he always been this bad?" "Ha!" one snorted. "You haven't seen anything until you've seen him in a rage." They heard heavy footsteps coming down the hall. All 3 scrambled out the door and back to their desks. That night, Nancy began looking for a new job. Not wanting word to get back to Steve that she was job hunting, she omitted her new job from her resume and used her maiden name, thinking it was time to legally change her name anyway. 2 months later, she lined up a new job. By then, she'd met and liked many of her coworkers. Several told her how surprised they were that she wasn't a bee. The first man who made that comment said, "Your predecessor was. We all figured that was what it took to handle working that close to Steve." Nancy wanted to do something for her coworkers before she left. She was getting out, but in the tight job market, many of them were stuck working for Steve. Also, most of them liked their work, although not the oppressive environment. As she'd suspected, Steve had put her through trial by fire and, because she'd handled it without faltering, now relied on her. While he barked at her occasionally, he often asked for her thoughts about one of his plans. Wisely, she always told him what she admired about whatever he proposed, and never voiced objections. Because she opened his mail, Nancy also seized the opportunity to put things into his mail stack she wanted him to see. When she learned about 360-degree reviews, she sought out information and realized the potential benefits. Generally, bully bosses have an inflated view of themselves, their leadership qualities, and how much their employees admire them, and they like having those views confirmed. If you work for a bully boss, consider what you appreciate about him or her, and let the boss know it. Bully bosses also desire information that they can use as ammunition to increase their control of their employees and organizations. As a result, they often accept a consultant's or human resources professional's suggestion to implement a 360-degree review. Sometimes this neutrally gathered information can convince a bully boss to learn new ways of treating others. Tactic number 5. Document your boss's behavior. If your bully boss runs your department rather than the organization, or reports to a board of directors, demonstrating the cost to the organization in morale, productivity, and turnover carries great weight. When you have enough documentation, bring it to the chief executive officer or board chair's attention. It may convince them to rein in the bully. Tactic number 6. Know your legal rights. While bully bosses may rule their organizations or departments, they don't rule the world. If your bully boss discriminates illegally against you, and you're a member of a protected category based, for example, on your age, sex, race, or pregnancy, or a part of another statutorily protected group, seek help from your state's Human Rights Commission, or from the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If your bully boss lashes out at you because you've engaged in a protected activity, such as protecting your right to work in a safe workplace, document the situation and bring it to the attention of the relevant regulatory body. Chapter 27 provides a full list of the protected activities and categories that may help you take out your bully boss. Tactic number 7. Don't let your bully boss steal your visibility. This is especially true if you've generated new, innovative ideas that may help you leapfrog past your boss in the organization's hierarchy. Establish credit for your ideas before a bully boss claims your work as his or her own. Tactic number 8. Besting the bully boss. Once Nancy knew she had another job lined up, she called a consultant on her personal cell phone and outlined the situation. I have a tyrant boss. 53 people in this organization, and one man makes their lives miserable. I'm thinking a 360-degree review would hold a mirror up to our boss. It does, better than almost anything else I know. Would it be possible to do one of these reviews and keep it confidential? Everyone emails me their forms. They can do it from their home computers or another computer that's not part of your office network, because anything that is sent from your network to an outside third party can be captured and reviewed. Or I can send you 53 printed questionnaires along with self-addressed stamped envelopes, and they can mail them to me confidentially. What if our boss asks you for them and recognizes people's handwriting? You have my word I'll input the data and shred the original questionnaires. We have a plan. The consultant provided a brochure along with the names of the largest companies for which she'd done 360s. Nancy slid the information into Steve's stack of mail and placed the mail on Steve's desk. "What the hell is this crap?" he asked her, fishing out the brochure on the 360-degree leader review. "What, sir?" "This stuff from some management consultant." "Oh," she said as she took the brochure. "I've heard about these. A lot of Fortune 500 companies are using them, but only for their top leaders." Steve grunted. As she exited, she heard Steve making a call and crossed her fingers. Nancy handed Steve her resignation the day after she knew most employees had mailed in their questionnaires. As she had predicted, he fired her on the spot. "Thank you, sir," she said gaily. "I consider that an A." Your turn. Where are you now? If you have not encountered a bully boss, imagine what it would be like if you had and answer the following questions accordingly. 1. Have you worked for a bully? What bullying behaviors did your boss exhibit? 2. In what ways did this boss try to control or dominate you? 3. What other maladaptive behaviors did your boss exhibit? 4. What happened to your self-confidence when you worked with this boss? 5. In what other ways did your bully boss affect you? 6. Did your bully boss realize he or she was a bully? 7. Nancy helped her bully boss realize his goals. Did you use a similar strategy? 8. Although Nancy didn't fight her bully boss, in what ways did she stand up for herself? 9. How did you strengthen yourself internally? 10. How have you found and used allies? 11. Were you able to access a member of the board of directors or a manager more senior than your bully boss to help you? 12. If you've been bested in the past by a bully, how could successfully handling a bully transform your life? 13. If you currently work under a bully boss, are there any regulatory agencies, such as the Human Rights Commission or the Department of Labor, that can help you? Note, you will find more ideas in Chapter 27. 14. How did your bully boss's behavior affect others? 15. How did the boss's behavior affect morale and productivity? 16. What did you do to cope? What did others do to cope? What worked? What didn't work or made things worse? What would you do differently in the future? 17. What advice would you give to someone who works for a bully boss? 21. Handling the bully employee without getting burned. Nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely. Auguste Rodin. Earlier you met Golden Boy employee Jeff, who bullied his easygoing supervisor Adam from the day the senior manager promoted Adam instead of Jeff to a plum position. Because Jeff thought the job was rightfully his, he felt justified in treating Adam like trash. Conflict-averse Adam let Jeff push him around and usurp his role in staff meetings. Finally, Adam had had enough and realized he had to act. If you're bullied by someone who works for you, you may feel a special shame. After all, you could fire this employee, or so everyone else thinks. Disciplining or firing a bully, as you may know firsthand, isn't always easy. Perhaps your bully employee has a talent your organization needs, and if you fire the bully, you might not be able to easily replace his skill set. The bully may have tenure or union protection. Maybe the bully is a member of a protected group due to his age, sex, race, or some other characteristic, and you're concerned that if you fire him, you'll face an ugly lawsuit. You may fear that because the bully's coworkers have a different relationship with the individual who bullies you, they'll resent you for terminating someone they like. Conversely, you may employ a bully who treats you well but bullies his or her coworkers, and you find it hard to believe the stories they tell you. Supervisors disciplining bullies often feel they've flown into a box canyon. The moment they start the disciplinary process, the bully fights back with everything he has, and the supervisor feels as if she'd been slammed straight into a granite wall. Bully employees have multiple reasons for bullying supervisors, and few qualms about fighting back when supervisors attempt to discipline them. Employees who consistently bully do so because bullying brings them success. They feel no remorse, In fact, they feel justified in their actions. Employee bullies may lie, both to your face and about you behind your back. They regularly challenge what you say and your motivation for saying it. They often create an uproar in an attempt to make you back off or to topple you. They distort your actions to their coworkers, leading other employees to wonder why you are so mean. They learn where you're vulnerable and press those buttons. Real-world tactics that work. You can survive this if you employ the following tactics when a bully employee has tied you in knots. Tactic number 1. Don't play nice. You can't afford it. As a supervisor, you need to lead and manage. Don't let bully employees run the show while you accommodate them with chance after chance. If you allow a bully to continue problem behavior unchecked, you let your other employees and yourself down. Tactic number 2. Listen to your employees. If a staff member or members tell you another employee bullies them, listen. Many bullies kiss up and kick down. Don't assume that problem behavior you haven't personally seen or experienced doesn't exist. Tactic number 3. Don't give a bully pulpit. No matter how large your workload, spend time connecting with your employees so that you establish and maintain a good relationship and two-way communication with each worker. A bully employee who hopes to overthrow the supervisor spends considerable time cultivating covert relationships with coworkers, and then uses these to poison them against the supervisor. If your employees don't get to know you, they may believe your bully employees' misrepresentations of you. Tactic number 4. Protect yourself against sabotage. Realize that your bully employee may try to undermine how senior managers view you. The bully may wait until you're out of the office, trump up an excuse to contact your manager and say, "Ordinarily I'd ask my supervisor this question, but it's time critical and I haven't been able to find him." A bully employee who plays this game regularly can successfully undercut how upper management thinks of you. Tactic number 5. Don't delay. Assess the situation and take action. Adam asked his manager for a meeting and outlined everything that had happened since his promotion. He described his efforts to reach out to Jeff and Jeff's undermining actions. He asked his boss's permission to meet with Jeff and handle the situation, even if it meant Jeff might quit. "You've got it," Adam's boss said. Then he asked, "Has it occurred to you I could have selected Jeff instead of you?" "Yes." "Why do you think I picked you?" "I don't know." "That's part of the problem. I wanted an employee who could get along with others. You have those skills. You've also stepped up to every challenge you've encountered, except this one. Today's meeting is overdue." Let truth and fairness guide you. Is it right that your bully employee be allowed to get away with his behavior? If not, decide what you need to do and do it. The bully may try to muddy the waters with trumped-up issues. Don't fall for his ruses. Never put off until tomorrow when tackling a bully's bad behavior. While you're deciding whether or not to take action, your bully employee can damage morale and create a toxic environment for you or others. If you find yourself frustrated daily by the bully's misbehavior, find a senior manager, coach, or other individual who can help you develop and implement a game plan. Remember, bullies test to see who runs the show, you or them. If they take advantage and you initially allow it, and insist they toe the line only when you've had enough, they'll retaliate fiercely to protect their power and privilege. Although you need to act swiftly, take the time you need to reflect on the situation and to act wisely. Otherwise, your bully employee may use what you do to create a hostile environment, or, if fired, might allege wrongful termination or initiate a lawsuit. Before you discipline a bully or any other employee, make sure you've clearly and specifically outlined fair expectations for your employee's performance and behavior. If the bully violates those expectations, promptly and fairly confront the situation. How to effectively confront a bully employee. After his talk with his boss, Adam blinked. What was it that had led him to let bullies like Jeff walk all over him? What was he scared of? He took a long walk that night and asked himself those questions, as well as, is it right that I allowed Jeff to act the way he does? What is this situation doing to team morale? And, as the supervisor, what should I be doing? Then he asked himself, do I want to continue to be powerless, or do I want to rise to the challenge? The next morning, Adam called Jeff and asked to meet with him in his office. At first, Jeff put him off, protesting, I'm really busy. It's a mandatory meeting. All right, Jeff drawled. You'll know you're ready to confront the employee if you can answer yes to 2 questions. 1. Have you defined the problem behavior, your expectations, and the importance of meeting those expectations objectively and specifically? 2. Have you investigated and documented the situation? Chapter 23 outlines how to write effective documentation. Begin by setting the stage. Let the bully know why you are having the discussion. For example, you could say, I'd like us to have a productive discussion that results in improved performance and behavior. I'll be asking you questions in order to understand your perspective. Please feel free to ask me questions. My goal is that when we leave the room, we're on the same page. With this start, you accomplish 2 outcomes. If you've incorrectly assessed your employee as a bully, you've created a positive start. If, however, he is a bully, your statement emphasizes that you consider yourself his equal. Later in the discussion, you can affirm your supervisory status by adding, it's important we come to an agreement, and then outlining the negative consequences the employee faces if he does not meet the standard you set. Outline the issue and your expectations. When Jeff arrived 45 minutes later, Adam said, Jeff, I wanted you on the team. Looking bored, Jeff snickered. What team is that? I don't any longer, Adam continued, ignoring Jeff's snide retort. Jeff rolled his eyes, but Adam looked straight at Jeff and then held out a 1-page document. I've reviewed your actions since I received my promotion. I haven't called you on them. That's changing. Here's a list indicating the behavior I expect from you and every team member. Jeff smirked, but didn't reach for the page Adam held out to him. What is this garbage? Your last chance. There's a place for you to sign at the bottom of the page. Jeff reared up. I'll walk. You'd rather walk than change? That's right, snarled Jeff, hostility radiating from him like mist from a bog. That's too bad. I'm done putting up with your behavior. Not all employee bullies are willing to go as far as Jeff did. Some will respond by at least putting their own spin on the situation. Listen to what your employee says. Your bully employee may try to derail the discussion by angrily reacting. Don't lose your temper. Instead, keep the discussion on track. Once you've heard the employee's perspective and taken it into account, you might say, these are the expectations you need to meet. You may want a third party, such as your organization's human resources officer, another supervisor, or a management consultant to sit in on the meeting, either to help facilitate the discussion or to assist you by documenting what was and wasn't said. When all else fails, terminating a bully employee. Jeff slammed out of Adam's office and barged into their manager's office, angrily protesting the unfair treatment he'd just received from his incompetent supervisor. When the manager didn't rally to Jeff's defense, Jeff accused the manager. You promoted the wrong person, and you never responded to my emails. I saw them for what they were, the manager responded. Jeff didn't ask the manager what he meant, but instead stormed out. He then hired an attorney who sent a threatening letter alleging constructive discharge, intolerable working conditions. Adam's manager responded by sending detailed documentation concerning Jeff's behavior after Adam's promotion. The company never again heard from Jeff. If oral counseling doesn't work, fairness generally requires that you have a second, more formal meeting called a written reprimand, where, in addition to your oral discussion, the employee is given written documentation, which he must sign, enumerating the performance and behaviors he needs to achieve. Because the employee signs the reprimand, if you need to terminate him later, the bully can't say, "I didn't know." Questions to ask yourself before firing a bully employee. Courts require employers and supervisors to act in good faith and fairness when terminating employees, so to be certain you have, consider the following before taking any action. Have I required the same performance of the bully as I have required of other employees? Have I treated other employees with similar records the same way or differently? Have I warned the employee what action will be taken if his or her behavior and performance fail to improve? Do I have sufficient documentation to convince a neutral third party, such as a judge, jury, or regulatory agency, that this employee deserved to be fired? While a bully employee may have pushed your buttons until you feel, "It's the bully employee or me that must go," never lose your temper. A supervisor who keeps his or her cool and is in the right can successfully manage, discipline, and even terminate a bully employee. Finally, although supervisor disciplinary tools can help you manage a bully employee, your internal decision-making plays an equally vital role. If you're one of the many supervisors who let a bully employee push you around, ask yourself, what is it going to take for me to rise to the challenge? Then, whatever it is, find it. Your turn. Where are you now? 1. Although you might not be a supervisor, the discussion in this chapter might have prompted you to consider the question, why do I allow others to push me around? What's your answer? 2. Do you supervise or work with a bully employee? What would your answer be to the question posed in this chapter? What is it going to take for you to rise to the challenge? Why is it so important for supervisors or managers to handle bully employees? How do they let themselves and their employees down if they don't? 3. Have you ever encountered an employee bully who poisoned co-workers against a supervisor? If you were the supervisor at that time, what happened and how did you handle it? If you were an employee, were you swept along by the bully's actions or were you a bystander? If a bystander, what did you do? 4. Of all the guidance provided in this chapter, what did you find most helpful? Why? 5. If you know a supervisor facing a bully employee, consider taking a risk. Meet with the supervisor and explain what you learned from this chapter. 22. 9 essential strategies for creating your game plan. Things don't happen. They are made to happen. John F. Kennedy. Having come this far, you probably realize much about what led you to be bullied and how you can beat workplace bullies in your life. You've most likely turned some of those insights into commitments to yourself. In this chapter, I will show you how to formulate those commitments into goal statements and to develop your game plan. By setting goals and creating plans, you have the opportunity to live your life by design rather than by default. Formulate your game plan. In this chapter, you'll set at least one goal and learn how to turn goal setting into goal achieving. If you've ever made a promise to yourself, only to watch your motivation fade and your dream evaporate, you know the importance of a defined plan. Strategy number 1. Set one goal you'd give anything to reach. Let yourself dream. A goal you really care about provides inspiration in the same way that the chance to win a tournament keeps an athlete performing without noticing how exhausted she is. What do you want to change in the way you handle bullies? For example, do you want to keep bullies from gaining an outpost in your mind? Or do you want to be able to stand up for yourself whenever someone assaults you verbally? Write your goal on a piece of paper or enter it in your computer. Strategy number 2. Rev up your energy. Heading for a goal with partial energy is like driving forward with the parking brake on. Take your foot off the brake. Let yourself feel excited and power up your momentum by focusing on how you'll feel about yourself and your work life once you've achieved your goal. Answering the following questions can help you focus on the benefits you'll get once you've achieved your goal. What will change for you at work? For example, will you enjoy coming to work every day again? What excites you about this goal? How might attaining this goal impact your career? Strategy number 3. Make your goal real. 2 popular New Year's resolutions, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to exercise more, often fail. Why? General goals rarely capture enough mental energy to power you all the way through to the finish line, given the occasional tackle or takedown. While goals such as preventing bullies from gaining an outpost in your mind, or standing up to an angry, aggressive jerk's caustic comments, may initially excite and inspire you, you won't always achieve lasting change unless you frame your goal more concretely. You can do this by making your goals vivid, by setting time frames and targeted outcomes. A specific deadline gives your goal added punch. You may even decide the time is now and write your goal in "from this day forward" terms. An action verb or a target outcome such as "I'll lose 6 pounds by September 30th" makes your goal definitive. Here are 2 workplace bully examples. 1. From this day forward, I'll respond assertively to snarky attacks. 2. By September 15th, I will have met with the Chief Operations Officer and provide objective information concerning the ways in which my immediate supervisor bullies my coworker and me. By September 25th, I'll have made a mental decision about what I'll do if my concerns are not addressed or the situation worsens. Write or enter your goal with a time frame and a clear, targeted outcome. Strategy number 4. Visualize your goal. You can make your goal even more inspiring by creating an intense visual picture of what your goal means. Imagine the future, one in which you've achieved your goal. Allow yourself to fully feel the emotions you'll experience and to vividly picture how you'll look and act. As a reminder, write or enter a few phrases that describe what you pictured in your mind. Because keeping your goal in mind creates regular inspiration, you may want to mentally picture your goal each morning as you awaken, and again just before you head to work. Strategy number 5. Make sure your goal is realistic. Do you believe you can achieve your goal? If you are unsure during the goal-setting process, you weaken your chances of success. Occasionally, we trip ourselves up by formulating inspirational yet out-of-reach goals. If you've done this, redraft your goal in more attainable terms. Just as an overweight person might redraft, "I will lose 100 pounds this year," into a more realistic, "I will lose 9 pounds in the next 3 months." You might write, "I will respond to snarky comments with statements like, 'Pardon me?' or 'What is your point?' rather than, 'I'll think quickly on my feet and be able to turn the tables on a bully's nasty comments with a humorous comeback.'" By setting a realistic goal to which you can fully commit, you increase your chances of attaining your initial goal. Once you've attained your first goal, you can set an even more challenging one. So, do you want to downsize your goal to a more realistic one? Or can you commit 100% to your initial goal? If so, you're on your way. Strategy number 6. Design your strategies. Now that you've established your goal, what strategies might you use to achieve it? For example, Adam might write, "I will sit down with Jeff within 48 hours and give him a list of my expectations for his future behavior." Or, "If Jeff targets me with a snarky comment in front of another employee, I'll say, 'Jeff, let's take this offline. Meet with me after today's meeting. When you're writing strategies, allow yourself to list them freely, without any self-censorship. Then return to your list and pick those you'll try. Please take 2 minutes and make your list. Strategy number 7. Design your game plan. Designing a game plan cements your likelihood of success. Well-formulated game plans chart when you'll start each strategy and the resources you'll need to implement each one. Because you can't always start every strategy immediately, establishing dates helps you keep on track toward meeting your goal. Resources vary widely. One of my clients took up the Korean martial art of Taekwondo to develop her self-confidence. Another client used me as a resource. He made me his sounding board as he formulated how he'd present his situation to upper management. Strategy number 8. Set mileposts and establish a follow-up method. Setting mileposts helps you stay on top of your progress. A milepost defines exactly what you hope to happen by specific intermediary dates as you head toward goal attainment. Specific mileposts also remind you that you're making progress even if you experience minor setbacks. For example, someone who hopes to lose 21 pounds may set a milepost for losing 4 pounds a month. Then, even if she hits a plateau or regains a pound or two during a week, she can see that by the end of each month she has consistently lost 4 pounds. If you establish a goal relating to self-confidence, you may become disheartened if you backed down from a challenge. By setting mileposts, you can remind yourself of the progress you're making. You'll also want to establish a method for keeping your goal front and center in your mind. One of my clients placed his game plan on his home computer in the quick launch at startup and saw it each time he powered on his computer. Another printed her game plan and posted it next to her bedroom mirror. Please refer again to your bonus PDF. You will see a model game plan worksheet. In the sample, I've entered possible strategies, start times, resources, and mileposts for the hypothetical goal of responding to snarky comments. I recommend that you create one just like it, on paper or on your computer, to set a weekly milepost for what you want to see achieved for each strategy you plan to use to achieve your goal or goals. Strategy number 9. Start now. Your final strategy? Do something right now that gets you working toward one of your goals. Develop a plan. Make notes on your desk or computer calendar about the action steps you'll accomplish on certain days. Or just simply start. Congratulations. You're on your way. Your turn. Where are you now? 1. If you've set a goal, reflect on how it felt to create one. If you haven't yet established a goal, what stands in your way? Imagine I'm sitting in front of you and asking you what you want to change. What did you answer? Whatever your first thought was, that's your goal. 2. If you haven't yet done so, fill out your game plan worksheet. 3. What's the most helpful idea or strategy you gained from working through these goal-setting and game planning exercises? 4. How do you feel about the time frames and mileposts you've created in your game plan? 5. What might stop you from carrying out your game plan? Are there any barriers or obstacles that might get in your way? How do you plan to tackle each of them? 6. When you set goals in the past, perhaps a New Year's resolution, was there something that led you to give up or decide to retreat into your comfort zone? What was it? How will you recognize it next time, and how will you handle it differently?